I'm assuming that you're in your first year of lifting or you're just about to start. Even if you're finished your first year of lifting, this one tip will guarantee you to maximize your gains, and that is bulking. Yes, old-fashioned bulking. Now, you may think you already know everything about bulking and immediately want to click off, but before you actually do click off, I want to ask you, why do you think bulking is so important, and why don't you do something fancy like a body recomposition or just go on a cut to show, to show your abs? Why do you need to bulk up? So whether you're skinny fat, or just a regular person starting out, bulking should be the only thing you should be doing in your first year of lifting. The only exception are for people who find or feel that they're overweight and they're in a separate category. Everyone else should be bulking the first year when they first start lifting. Now, before I explain how you guys should bulk when you first start, I want to explain what bulking is for those who do not know, and also the consequences of bulking and why those consequences are important. In simple terms, bulking is basically when you eat in a caloric surplus. So if you think about it like this, your body is a house, and all your expenditures throughout the day, whether that be exercise, just waking up and living, and basically moving throughout the day, that's your expenditure. So in your house, when you go to, or using the house example, whatever water you use, so whether that be when you're showering, doing the laundry, or washing the dishes, that's all the water expenditure. And what you eat, or your caloric intake, is basically the water that's coming or supplied through the water pipes into your house. So when you're bulking, you're in a caloric surplus, which means the in is greater than the out. So the water coming in through the pipes, there's more of it coming than what you're expending through your daily activities. Calorically, it basically means that what you're eating, the food that you're eating more calories than your expenditure. And what this means is that your body is left with these additional resources, these additional calories. And these calories are very important, as you'll see. Basically, these additional calories are like your resources. And having additional resources means you have additional energy or more energy to fuel your workouts. Not only that, but your additional resources can be used to recover much quicker, also build muscle quicker, and finally be in a less stressful environment because you have those additional resources for your brain and body to feel productive and stable. So now, explaining the consequences. The first one was we get more energy. Now, why is more energy a good thing? Well, more energy means your workouts are much more productive and at a higher standard. Because of the more energy you have, you're able to lift heavier weights. And because you're able to lift heavier weights, your muscles need to adapt even more. Basically, why your body adapts is when you actually physically resistance train, you provide a stress and stimulus to your muscles. And I'll be explaining this more in depth later on. But when you receive this stress and stimulus, your body is signaled that I need to be more recovered and adapted to fight this stress or be more able to handle the stress next time on. And to be able to handle it much better, it builds muscle. It's more capable of handling the stress. And stress in this terms is basically the weight. So the more weight you use, the more adaptations is required by your body, and adaptations means more muscle gains. Speaking of adaptations, when you first start lifting, all your muscles and body are primed to explode in muscle gain. Literally put slabs of muscle on. Think of it like this. Back when humans were nomads and we had to outrun our predators, only the fast ones would be able to outrun the big lions and big cats, and the slow ones would be eaten up. So when the fast humans were able to survive and reproduce, their children would naturally be faster than the previous generation. And so from generation to the next generation, there was an adaptation in speed, so they were able to be faster. And this is a survival instinct because the slow ones, they weren't able to survive, and in order for the new generation to survive, they needed to adapt, and they needed to adapt to survive. This is called natural selection, and it's a very common thing. Here's an example to prove what I'm just trying to say. So similarly, when we resistance train and use weights, it's also a survival instinct, because this time the predator is not the actual big cats or the lion. It's the stress from the weights onto your muscles. And like I explained before, to be able to handle that stress next time much better, your body is building muscle to be able to cope with it much better. Secondly, the reason why you can put on so much more muscle when you first start off is because you're not close to your genetic limit. So if your genetic limit was all the way up here, you're somewhere down right here. And as you start training, which is years this way, I'll show you on the graph, and gains this way, it goes up very quickly and then starts slowing down like this. And it's basically called law of diminishing returns, where at the beginning, you can put little work in and get a lot of gains, and later on you'll need to put a lot of work in just to get a little amount of gains. So your body is primed to put on muscle, and you know you need to put little work up front. But by bulking and watching my video, you're going to do yourself justice by maximizing those early gains, where yes, you can put in little work, but if you put in more work at the beginning, your gains will skyrocket even more. When you go into the gym to train, you don't build muscle right when you're training. It actually happens later on, and I'll explain why. So if you take, for example, your arm and you do a bicep curl. Now I got to put my arm out here just so you guys can see, but usually it would be down there. Like, so when your arm's out here, if you look at your bicep, if you feel it, it's in its most lengthened position. And as you bring your arm in like this and you bend your elbow, now your biceps in the most contracted position. So it went from lengthened to contracted, and then you bring it back down. And that's one rep when you're bicep curling. Now, if you think about it, if you're holding a heavy weight like a dumbbell or a barbell, and you got to control the weight to contract it, and then you got to control the lengthening process, you can imagine the stress that, or like the lengthening stress that your muscle fibers have to go through, because your actual bicep is going to be lengthening under that weight. It's like if you've got a rubber band and then you put something heavy around the rubber band and you just dangle it and it stretches. And even the rubber band, if you look at it, there are those tiny things which start coming out, especially as it gets lengthened more and more. And that's the same for your muscles. Basically what happens to your muscles is that you get micro tears. And micro tears aren't injuries, just saying. It happens, it's the only way to gain muscle, and it happens to everyone. And basically, micro tears are the things that happen when you're contracting and expanding your muscles when you're going to the gym and lifting. And if you think about it, micro tears are the only way your body knows that I've got like tiny tears in my bicep. I need to repair my bicep. And repair in this case means adaptation, which equals muscle gain, as you guys remember. So if you think about it, micro tears are what creates muscle gain, because when you go to the gym and actually physically train your bicep, you create those micro tears, and that signals to your brain that I need to go repair this bicep and I need to make it stronger and bigger, so next time it will be able to handle what I did last time in the gym. And so those extra nutrients that you had from bulking, they go straight in and they heal the muscle, which I'm going to be covering a bit later on in the recovery and muscle building section. Not only that, but if you think about it, the actual micro tears is what causes muscle pain and muscle soreness. So when you first start in the gym, if you haven't yet, or even if you have, you'll realize that after every session you feel so beat up, especially the next day. It's because you have a lot of muscle soreness. Your muscles aren't ever used to those micro tears of lengthening and curling the biceps, or doing your quads or your chest or any muscle group at all. And because everything is so foreign and new to it, it experiences a lot of disruption, which is a lot of muscle micro tears. That's a good thing though, which means you also get a lot of muscle gain. Because we're bulking and we have more energy, we're able to lift more weights. Lifting more weights means we get to lift also heavier weights. And because of that, we have to contract harder our muscles, and we also have to lengthen them harder. Like, we got to control the movements more because it's heavier as well, which also means we get more micro tears, and more micro tears means more muscle gain. But there's also another problem. When you get more micro tears, it means you get more physical soreness and disruption in your body, which hurts. So wouldn't you say then bulking is a problem because you constantly feel sore? The solution is, though, when you're bulking, you're eating always throughout the day. So all the additional resources that you get from eating in a caloric surplus aren't consumed just in the training. Because if you think about it, you have the whole day to eat. You eat a pre-workout meal. After your workout, you eat a post-workout meal. If you work out earlier in the day, then you have meals after that, like lunch and dinner. And if you work out later on in the day, then you also had breakfast and lunch before your training. Which means your body always has additional nutrients to not only repair not only repair the micro tears quicker, but also build muscle much faster. Which means the whole muscle building cycle happens at a much quicker rate when you're able to bulk. And this is very important when you first start off lifting, because you're provided the opportunity to exponentially increase your gains. And by not bulking, you're just simply shooting yourself in the foot. So now, the part that all of you guys have been waiting for, how to bulk. And I'm going to give two strategies or two different ways you can bulk. And now, both of them have their pros and cons, so neither one is technically better. I would recommend one, but there are always two options, so I'm going to present both of them. Regardless which one you follow, there are some principles that both of them you have to adhere to, or both of the plans or strategies use. And the first concept that both follow is that we want to maximize our muscle gain and minimize fat gain, which means we're not going to be dirty bulking whatsoever. If you want to know exactly why dirty bulking is a completely horrible and futile option, then go watch my video. Also, the second concept is majority of our food will be nutritiously healthy foods, but we can also have a large variety of foods that we like to eat. You just want to make sure that at least like 3 out of 4 of your meals are good healthy foods, and I'll be explaining what foods exactly, but the range can really depend. So you can either do like a 75-25 split where 3 out of your 4 meals are healthy, or you could, even if you want to be more extreme, you could choose a 90-10 split where 90% of your meals are healthy and the remaining 10% are your choice. But really it depends. Just don't go anything too crazy like 99% healthy, because when you're first starting out, unless you have the best adherence in the world, they don't know me, son, that can get very difficult and you do need to reward yourself. But anything lower than 75%, 25%, you're basically eating all junk the whole time throughout the day. Regardless of whether you find it difficult to get all your meals in, and given that you're bulking, you have to eat even more, or you're very comfortable with eating in a surplus, or you never struggle with having a small appetite, it doesn't really matter, because the way we're going to be doing this caters for everyone. The first thing I'll be assuming is that your parents cook your meals, and even if that isn't the case, or they do cook it but it's quite unhealthy food and you want to focus on the more healthier foods like I suggest, then the guidelines I'll be giving should help you. So the first thing is, most of your proteins should be the leaner forms of proteins. The only reason why you should be focusing, or you should be eating more fattier proteins, is you physically can't eat any more and you can't follow the strategy that I'll be giving. And so you can eat the same amount, but if you choose to eat a fattier protein, you'll be eating more calories because it's additional fat for the same amount of food you're eating. So if you think about it, let's just say, not a protein example, but if we were to get something like yogurt, if you were to get milk, right? And you know how when you go to the grocery store, there's like full cream milk, and then there's also like 2% milk, 1% milk, which refers to the amount of percent of fat. So if you were to get 1% fat milk, well, basically there's only 1% of fat in the 2-liter bottle or 2-liter carton, or if you live in America, gallon. But if you look at the full cream milk, it's the same liters, it's 2 liters, but it's the full fat milk and not the 1% milk, which means it's got more fat in it. So it will have more calories, which will help you because remember, we're trying to eat in a caloric surplus. Now, before I continue on, I also want to mention that the reason why you would want to add fattier proteins is because for each gram of fat, it has 9 calories, whereas carbs and proteins only have 4 calories. If you did think about it, going back to the gallon of milk, if we were to have, let's say, 20 grams of protein and 2 grams of fat in the 1% milk, and instead for the 2-liter milk, we were to have something like 20 grams of protein, it's the same amount of protein, but rather than 2 grams of fat, we were having something like 5 grams of fat. Now, the protein is the same. So if you do 20 times 4, that's 80 calories in both. But since there's 3 grams more fat in the full cream milk, that would be 3 times 9, which is 27 additional calories in the full cream milk, even if you drink the same amount. As for carbs, you want to be choosing the more complex carbs. But similar to the protein things, if you can't follow the strategy that I'm going to give and you eat whatever you can, but you never are able to eat that extra amount, then choosing more simpler carbs. So when it came to proteins, you were to choose more fattier proteins instead of leaner ones. And when it comes to carbs, rather than choosing more complex carbs, sometimes you want to mix in more simple carbs. Now, you don't want to go completely simple carbs or completely fattier proteins, but you want to include a bit more of those. So as for fruits and veggies, you want to at least be hitting a total of 3 times a day. Yes, they can taste really bad. The simple answer would be hopefully your parents cook them well, your veggies. Fruits, on the other hand, taste really nice, even if they're uncooked. Fruits are eaten raw anyways, like a banana. I don't see people cooking banana or steam cooking, frying or whatever bananas, unless you're some real weirdo. But yeah, so you want to at least be aiming for 3 servings throughout the day. Any more is better, but if you eat too many of it, it can be too filling at sometimes. So I just say a minimum of 3. And as for fats, you want to choose the healthier fats. And the key over here is to make food taste good. If you think about it, whenever you go to a restaurant or like go out to eat something, because the food tastes so good, you eat more of it because it's easier to get down. And the good thing with fats is compared to proteins and carbs, fats are more tastier. Next time you make, I don't know, a shake or something, like a big gainer shake, and you add your protein, your milk, your whey, whatever, before adding in any peanut butter, just shake everything together like in a blender or whatever, food processor. Drink a bit of that and then add a couple spoons of peanut butter, then shake everything together and you'll taste the difference. This is because fats are the most tastiest macronutrient. So good thing is fats are also highest in calories, which helps really when it comes to bulking. So for those people who struggle to really get food in, using healthy fats are a great option. Now, I mentioned everything about proteins, carbs, fruits, veg, healthy fats, and all this. And you may be wondering, what exactly am I talking about? Like I mentioned lean proteins, but which lean proteins am I talking about? And for an exact reference of that, go check my video on the 5 commandments that everyone needs to follow. And in that video, I show examples of each one. Now to the actual strategy, the blueprint. So whatever meal you have every day, for each meal, continue having that even when you're bulking. But instead, add an additional 10% to what you're having. That doesn't mean go weigh it out, because that defeats the whole purpose of path number 1, which is not tracking. Path number 2 is tracking, but I'll get to that later on. Path number 1 is not tracking, which means just from visual assessment, what you're eating, add a 10% extra before you even start eating anything. And as you start getting more full and approach that additional 10%, think of each spoon or each bite as an extra rep. Extra bicep curl, extra gains, extra muscle damage, extra muscle micro tears, extra muscle adaptations, extra muscle gain. In the same way, each rep of eating 1 extra bite means more fuel in your workouts, means 1 extra rep in the gym, means 1 extra or quicker day of recovery. If you think of it like that, every additional rep or every bite that you eat in addition, and you finish that extra 10% off, you could use that as motivation to help you to eat and finish all your meals.
1, go!
Also, in addition to that, you have a couple other things that you want to be doing. The first one is to reduce your veggies. Like I said, minimum of 3 in the whole day, 3 servings. But when you're having your actual meal, if you can distribute your veggies out separately, if you reduce a bit of your veggies and instead increase a bit of your carbs, easy way to feel less full while eating the same thing. Choosing more fats, because remember, fats are the tastiest.
Fat is flavor.
Touching on flavor, eat the foods that are easiest to get down first. Usually people like to save their best till the last, but if you eat the foods that you like first, you finish them quicker. And if you finish your food quickly, then you don't really give the time you don't give the time to send the signal to your brain that you're actually full. And this will help you to get all your meals down. And finally, don't drink any water during your meal or before your meal. This just unnecessarily fills up your stomach and just reduces your chance of eating that additional 10%, which is what you really need to hone in and focus on. Eating additional 10% every single time you come down to eat and focusing on it rep by rep. So now, to put all we've learned into actual examples, I'm going to give a couple. You're eating complex carbs and at night you wanted to change it up and you decided to choose a more simpler carb because at night it's very hard for you to finish all your meals and get down that extra 10%, which is so important when it comes to bulking. Be having pasta for dinner today. And in order to get that additional 10%, which is very important because eating an additional 10% means you're eating additional calories, which means your caloric in compared to your out, the caloric in will be higher than your out, so you'll be in a surplus, which means you'll be bulking. In order to achieve this extra 10%,
Well, no fucking shit!
you may have decided to reduce on the veggies or how many veggies you usually add into your pasta and increase on the actual pasta itself. That way the ratio between the pasta and the veggies is changed now, and because pasta is much more easier to get down than the veggies, you'll be able to get down not only your actual portion but the additional 10%. Even if you change the ratio between the veggies and the pasta, the amount of protein that you eat remains the same. A second example would be in the morning when you're about to go to school and let's say you take out a cereal or something or oatmeal and you pour almond milk in. Instead of using almond milk, you may want to switch that for full cream milk because full cream milk has many more calories since it has more fat. And if we remember, fat holds 9 calories compared to protein and carbs, which are only 4 calories per gram. So you're adding in more fat, which means more calories. Also to that, you may add a spoon of peanut butter, which is a second variety of fat, meaning it'll taste better. So since the food tastes better, you'll be able to finish it quicker, and you can add that additional 10% of oatmeal or 10% of cereal, and you'll still be able to get it down easily because it tastes good. And since you're adding in more calories, all in all, you're adhering to bulking. The second part is to actually be tracking your calories. Now, I definitely would advise the first strategy for anyone who's just started lifting or in their first year of training, or simply do not want the stress or commitment of needing to constantly track things. But for those who are a bit more advanced, the tracking strategy does have its additional benefits. But before continuing on to the benefits, I must say you need to be much more consistent with this, and also it requires a much more upfront commitment from you because you need to be tracking each meal and making sure that you're eating in the correct amount of surplus and so on and so forth. The only added benefit is that you're able to bulk at a much more steady rate and it's more controllable by you, which means you're able to have more control or slightly be able to control better the amount of fat you gain while bulking. But since this video is in the beginner series and is focused more on people in their first year of lifting or just starting out, I won't be going too deep into how to actually be bulking when you're tracking your calories and everything. All I'll say is that find your maintenance calories, and to do this you can go online and search up TDEE calculator, and then after you get that, just add another 10%. So similar to the first strategy, for both of them, we're adding an additional 10%. So if, for example, you found out that your maintenance calories were 3,000, then when you're bulking, it would be 3,300. And you just be able to add that 300 additional calories with your choice of foods, following the structure where we're eating majority healthy, remaining 25% is yours to choose from. Both plans follow this additional 10% rule because it's very important to ensuring that you're in a caloric surplus and you're able to bulk and gain muscle the fastest while also being able to recover from your workouts. This doesn't mean that you always have to be exactly eating 10% extra. Sometimes it may fluctuate where you eat only 8% or 7% higher, and sometimes you may feel like you're eating 20% higher. Just make sure roughly on average it's around 10%. Good luck with your bulk, may the gains be with you, and see you in the next video.